Welcome to the MOAA Public Affairs and Communication Professional Virtual Chapter Virtual Meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to turn the meeting over to Captain Kevin Wensing, United States Navy retired. Kevin is our Speakers Bureau Chair, and he is going to introduce our featured speakers for this afternoon. The floor is yours, sir.
We're so delighted to have Bob Thompson, the Chief of Staff for the Uniform University, present to us today about the vital role that the Uniformed Services University does in training all our medical personnel. So, Bob, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you. I understand you have a few slides, and then after you get through with your program, then I think we're going to bring in Tammy a little bit to talk about some of the exciting things that they're going to be doing with Friends of USU at the end of your presentation.
First, I'm a retired Army officer. Grew up in Philadelphia, went to Drexel University, ROTC program there, came on to active duty, was assigned into the Medical Service Corps and served 30 years thereafter, working a lot of medical ops, personnel, and some logistics. Once I retired from the military, I had known about the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences because I had done a little bit of teaching here as an adjunct member of this community, but really never thought I'd have the honor and pleasure of landing here as the Chief of Staff, and it's been a dream come true. So what I'm going to do this afternoon, tag teaming with Mrs. Alvarez, with Tammy, is walk you through a little bit about the university, when we started, how we grew, the purpose of the university, and then I'm going to hand it off to Tammy to talk about some exciting upcoming events. What I want to say with the first slide, it's quite an honor and pleasure for me to be here with you this afternoon, so I thank you greatly. I'm a lifetime member of MOAA, so this is very special to me. What you're doing on behalf of our active duty members, our reservists, our retirees, and their families. And so I applaud you for doing that. So Link was kind enough to share ahead of time kind of the mission of the Uniformed Services University. And what I want to point out in the mission statement is that we have 4 roles here at the university, using a lot of words here, but those 4 roles are first and foremost education. We're a fourth generation platform for the Department of War. In our case, we generate forces in terms of doctors, nurses, dentists, and allied health technicians. Secondly, in order to support the education mission, we have a research mission that is kind of the scholastically part of the education mission. We have a thought leadership cell here at the university to take on issues that are of importance to the military health system. And last but not least, we have a small operational support mission, mainly in the area of global health. Our vision, as you see, is by 2028 to be internationally recognized as a health sciences university. And what I really want to stress with the vision is what we view ourselves is to be the MHS, the Military Health System Leadership Academy for the Department of War. And you're seeing the top of the slide, that really summarizes what this university is all about, learning to care for those in harm's way. Most service members are willing to go into harm's way because they know that there's a commitment that the Department of War has made through the military health system, that a medic, a doc, a nurse, a dentist will be there during their worst day to get them out of harm's way, getting back to care, and to restore their functionality once we get back to CONUS. So that saying you see as you enter into our garage when you're on our campus, and it's what drives us each and every day. The university started out in 1972, really. Congress passed legislation after decades of trying to do this, of a Uniformed Services University. And the real impetus there was we were coming out of Vietnam War. It was starting to taper down, and we were doing away with the draft. There was concern whether we would be able to recruit enough healthcare professionals, primarily doctors, in order to provide the level of care both in peacetime and wartime going forward. So 72, the legislation was approved. It was during President Nixon's term as our president. 4 years later, we opened the door for the first class of students. It happened to be about 30 medical students. Our construction was still underway. We actually set up home above a drugstore in downtown Bethesda. But within 2 years, our buildings were complete and we moved to where we're currently located in Bethesda, Maryland at the NSAB. The next college that stood up was in 1993, and that was our nursing college, the Daniel K. Inouye Graduate School of Nursing. And you see there, we have a doctorate of nursing practice, PhD, and master's of science in nursing. And then about almost 20 years later, 2010, we set up a postgraduate dental college. And about 7 years later, our fourth and final college, the College of Allied Health Sciences. So we matured over about a 30-year time period from a medical school into a full-fledged health sciences university. The last item there is our major institute here, the Armed Forces Radiobiology Research Institute. And that organization joined us in 1993 as well. And they've been with us ever since. And I'll talk a little bit more about them as well as each of the schools later in this brief. So we take a different approach. We're unique here at the Uniformed Services University. And we like to think of ourselves akin to the undergraduate programs at our 3 service academies. Like those service academies, we do not charge tuition, but we do charge them. We charge them with service obligation to our country. So these are outstanding young men and women that come here. It's very difficult to get into our medical school. You'll see that in some slides when I show you about that. But all of our students, some already on active duty, some just coming onto active duty, have pledged basically to serve the Constitution of the United States and to do so in no matter where they might be needed. Next slide, please. So we are the only health sciences university in the federal government inventory. We have started out, as I mentioned, just as a medical school. We've grown. We've also grown in this federal agencies that we serve. We're primarily and foremost here for the Department of War, but we also have public health service students here, VA, and most recently, we end up having the Coast Guard join us as well in our student body. I mentioned earlier the research that we do. These are all areas that any health sciences university these days would be looking at. Some of the ones that you see listed there, we focus more on. Particularly, I want to highlight human performance optimization. We have a well-known program center that looks at optimizing, not just from a physical standpoint, but a mental, emotional, spiritual sense, so that we can maximize the value to each and every service members to the mission that we're given. And I mentioned previously about the thought leadership part of this university, similar to service academies. We have some of the most renowned, both nationally and internationally, faculty members here on our campus. You see the next to last bullet talks about the gold standard for our international military partners. Within the last 6 months, we've had 2 international partners come to us, South Korea and Nigeria, seeking to model, as they stand up an equivalent to USU, seeking to model the way we stood up our medical school in their country. Overall, internationally, we've had probably about 20 countries visit us in the last year for various reasons, educational opportunities, research collaboration. But they look to us to be kind of the North Star and the gold standard. There are a number of other countries, not many, that have an equivalent school like ours, but not as well known, as not as far-reaching. As we grew, as I mentioned, the 4 schools now, we are a full-fledged health sciences university. So I mentioned it's difficult to get into our university. It's even more difficult to get through and graduate. All you have to do is ask Mrs. Alvarez. She had one of her sons come through here, Brian Alvarez, now Captain Alvarez. Tammy, I think it was back in 2005, somewhere around there. We end up, as you see on the bullets on this slide, they will do 700 a little bit more actually, 700 hours of military unique curriculum on top of the basic curriculum they would get if they were at a civilian medical school. And what that translates into is that they are a student of ours year round. There is no break of a summer break or anything like that. And so we push them pretty hard, and they respond very well. The other thing I would want to highlight that you will not see in any other civilian medical school or health sciences university is our field practicums. We partner with the state of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania National Guard, and we used Indiantown Gap as our training site for our field practicums. Every year, basically, the 4 years our medical students are here, they go out to Fort Indiantown Gap for one of the exercises that builds on the previous years. And not only our medical students, but our nursing students. One of the things we emphasize here is interprofessional education within the health sciences area, because medicine is practiced by multiple disciplines working together. So we have the advantage here of having all 4 disciplines that can work together, both didactically when they're in class, small groups, and when they're in the field. And the other thing I would want to point out is that we are a magnet for international partners, particularly with that 4th listed practicum of Bushmaster. Bushmaster is a culminating field exercise for our medical students. It's a go, no go. If they do not pass it, they're recycled, they're given a chance to make up. It rarely occurs. They're so well prepared by then. But we have an abundance of partners that want to send medical students to our exercise. We can't absorb them all. We usually take anywhere from 15 to 20 international students. That adds to the richness of the experience, certainly for our medical students and nursing students that are out at the Bushmaster exercise. It's about a 2-minute video that walks you through the experience that our students go through at Bushmaster.
In some form or another, all graduating medical students and now our graduating advanced practice nurses have performed during Operation Bushmaster. It's a combination of being an excellent clinician, so they have to know the medical part of this, but they also have to have kind of a more subjective feeling of being able to lead and lead their peers, which is a very difficult thing to do sometimes. They all switch out in their leadership roles, and so they're not always in a position where they're the ones making the big decisions, but they're always going to be in a support role within the battalion and the platoon.
We got more people! We got 3! Please help! Right here for you. Ready forward! You need to speak up!
Do you have an estimate on the number of casualties we've
Yes,
had?
right now we are on 13-5.
USU is the only medical school in the country that has a Department of Military and Emergency Medicine. Bushmaster is the only exercise of its kind, not only within the military medical community, but really within the Department of Defense. Nothing really comes up to this level of complexity and this level of depth of knowledge that we expect out of our students.
So I decided to take the class of 2028, 2 years out from graduating. And by the way, I was with Mrs. Alvarez and her husband, Mr. Alvarez, just this past Saturday where we graduated our class of 2026 from Dar Constitution Hall. And I think Mrs. Alvarez would agree with me. It's a really moving ceremony. It's a very unique ceremony. Our medical students end up not just walking across the streets to receive their degree, but they then take off their gowns and then come back into the back of the auditorium with their uniform on, and then they take their oath of office by the Surgeon General of each service or the Surgeon General rep who's there that day. And it's quite a moving event. This gives you some statistics of the class of 2028. They're very similar to any class that's here right now, the 3 classes that are here. I want to draw your attention kind of to the bottom of the screen. I mentioned it's difficult to get in. These numbers may not mean anything to you, of course, if you're not a healthcare professional, but an MCAT score of 510 as an average is quite high. That'll get you into most medical schools in our country. The GPA 3.7 obviously is high. And the other thing I want to mention to you is that we look at the academic profile of us applicant and before we make an admission decision, go, no go. But we also look at the complete person. We look at what they've done within their community for volunteer hours. We look at what they've done in terms of the medical shadowing physicians. And then we interview them. Not all that get to the interview stage, but those that get to the interview stage, that's probably at that point the most important factor. And what we like to say is that our students by and large can probably get into any medical school in the country, but students from a prestigious school like Harvard or Stanford or Duke may not get into our medical school if they don't do well in the interview. And we're looking for character values through that interview. And so if you're lacking there, we don't have the time to try to instill those values and that character into you. It has to be there already. We will fine tune it. We'll work with it. And so we're quite proud, again, of the students that are learning here on our campus. And so this shows some of the demographics. It's about a 1-for-1 equal number of male students in our medical school versus females. We're quite proud of first generation college, let alone a professional school like medical school. 20% of our class are first time college graduates from their family. About 60% have no prior military experience. That means about 40% have it. Our students learn as much from their peers or fellow students as they do from their faculty members, and at least for the military culture part of it. And so those who do have prior military experience are part of the leadership team within the student body. And this gives a little bit more stats about the medical school. In this one, I want to highlight the size of our faculty. It's the largest in the country for a medical school, just shy of 6,000 faculty. We don't have 6,000 faculty on our campus, but we have probably about 300. But we have many part-time or adjunct faculty members that voluntarily want to give back. And so they are an integral part of our overall faculty. And then we do have a graduate program here in addition to the medical school under the School of Medicine. And it's on the far right side, it lists some of the types of degrees that are offered. I mentioned research within the, now I'm over the Graduate School of Nursing. What I want to highlight there is the clinical hours. The nurses that come here are already on active duty. They have an undergraduate degree, a bachelor's in nursing science. We take it to the next level. When they leave here, they will at times be the sole provider in an austere environment. So we need to make sure that they can operate on their own, perform on their own. And so those clinical hours mean nothing to you isolated, about 2,000. But I will tell you, civilian nursing school, it's about a third of that. Postgraduate dental college. What I want to highlight here is that we have the largest portfolio of MS degree granting specialties in dentistry in the entire US. The other thing that this college has done is unified, brought together this community across the Army, Navy, and Air Force. It's a very tight community, and the connecting point is now been through this postgraduate dental college. And last but not least of our schools and colleges, the College of Allied Health Sciences. The first 3 schools I walked you through were basically officer health professions education. This one is focused on our enlisted medical techs. The college is set up headquartered not here in Bethesda, but in San Antonio, Texas, Joint Base San Antonio. They collaborate for anyone who knows a little bit about the medical enlisted training. There's a joint training site at Joint Base San Antonio called the Medical Education and Training Campus. We combine with that campus in order to award college credits and degrees when they're earned. And then we develop a transcript for them that can track them. And so they can, after they leave us, take general ed courses, for example, so they can have a degree. And many of our med tech fields now require certification. To get the certification, you need an associate or bachelor's degree. So it's fulfilling the requirements, professionalizing the medical enlisted techs within the services. And the Armed Forces Radio Research Institute, there you see the mission domains, research, education, operational support. And I won't, because of time, talk anymore about that, but they are doing a lot of operational support and research these days because of what's going on globally. Here's another thing that makes us unique. We have a military brigade here, and they are the key enabler in the unique experience that our students receive while they're at USU. I wanted to show you this because this grid square that I'm showing you is very unique in the area of biomedical science in the terms of first-class medical care and first-class education. So USU, I'm talking about today, just down the street from us, is our premier hospital within the military health system, Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, and across the street, the NIH National Institutes of Health. Here at USU, we partner with both of those, and that we develop through that partnership synergies for all three of these organizations that wouldn't be there if we weren't co-located as we are. I'm not going to talk too much because of time again about research, but we are a leading research institute for the military health system. And we are receiving each year, feels like to me, more and more funds from inside the Department of War, as well as other government agencies and private institutions to conduct research. We do make sure, though, that we don't just do research for research's sake. It's always military relevant research that we're doing to advance the science that supports the warfighter. And this is kind of my transition slide over to Mrs. Alvarez, to Tammy. We have a number of advocates. I just listed 3 key advocates. I mentioned already, I think, that Congress is the reason we're here. They stood us up. They continually advocate on our behalf. We've been around long enough. We have a very robust alumni association led by one of the neurosurgeons from here, Leon Morse, Dr. Morse. And then we are very blessed to have the Friends of USU. And that organization has been around about 2 decades. They advocate on a daily basis, not just for the university, but for military medicine in general. And Tammy, it will soon to walk you through some of the key events they have coming up. And so in front of everybody who happens to be on listening today and watching today, I want to give a big shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Alvarez. It's a team effort. There's a Alvarez family effort here, with currently Mrs. Alvarez serving as the president of Friends of USU.
Yeah, Bob, thank you very much. I was going to say, Tammy, why don't we have you come on board and talk a little bit about some of the great events you're doing with USU this coming fall. I think in October on the campus of Walter Reed, and then I think in November at the National Archives. So Tammy Alvarez, over to you to talk a little bit about the USU, and then we'll get a couple questions before the meeting concludes.
Thank you, Kevin. I've been involved. I was born into a family of priests and doctors. So it's embedded in me to care for others. And when my father was retired Army Doctor Reserve, and he loved military, loved the military. In fact, that's when I first became acquainted with MOAA, the magazine, before all of you were even born. And so it became a part of our lives. Later on in life, Everett and I married, and he became involved with the school because President Reagan appointed him and Senate confirmed him on the board. He served 21 years, and the average term is 6 years, right, Bob? And he and Admiral Zimble, then the president of the school, and Everett came on board in '87. And then when Admiral Zimble came on board, he and Everett asked me to volunteer in the development department. And I fell in love with the school from the day Everett became a part of it. It saved military men. It saved the military. You cannot have military without military medicine because once President Nixon did away with the draft, and I'm going to talk quickly, there was a threat of doctors leaving. I mean, in rapid and such in droves, they were leaving medicine. I remember my father being very concerned about that. And then when he heard he died after the news came out that President Nixon signed the legislation along with Edward F. Abers, was promoting it, that we were going to build a military medical school. That saved military medicine, as I said. Then when Everett and Jim Zimble asked Admiral Zimble me to do something to, one, save the school, number two, help form the alumni association, which was just on paper, and to form an organization outside of the school. So I did all three. They didn't believe I was going to do that. The biggest effort was we made a movie in support of the school. The school is unique, and what inspired me is when I went into the school, I would go into the classrooms, I would meet all the faculty and the students, and I made calls and research for the movie. I called hospitals, I called universities, I did research on these schools. There are very few medical schools that say the Hippocratic Oath. A lot of them make it voluntarily. Now, you know what the Hippocratic Oath is, right? We now are entering our second big effort in an event, which will be at the archives, National Archives. At that time, we are going to celebrate 250 years of military medicine. You know, the Revolutionary War, even before then, we had discoveries. We have made more effort and discoveries in the field of medicine than any other university. The year that I came on board in the early 90s or late 80s, the school was always being threatened for closure. So we need support and we need endorsements. We would love to have MOAA be a part of our family. We would love you to come and see what we're all about. Our telling you all about this means nothing. You have to see. You have to see these men and women. They're sacrificing. Our son is still a captain in the Navy. He's in the reserves. And he says, Mom, and he had 2 tours in Iraq with the Marines. And he said he could tell the difference between the civilian trained doctor and USUs because they're taught to work as a team. They don't work just for themselves. They work for the group, the team. And that's the beauty of the school also. They don't teach, they don't compete. They work together. Anyway, I don't want to take much of your time because I have a meeting to attend as you do. On November the 18th, and I think we've sent some invitations, haven't we, Kathy, to some of the MOAA individuals? And I'd love to have all of you on the list. It's going to be we never charge anybody. It's all from our hearts. And donations, we do accept donations. We're unique. We're unique. Every night events all the time in Washington. None of them, not one, is like us. None of them. Our whole purpose is to inform, to stress the importance of military medicine, and to encourage support from Congress and Department of Defense, etc. November 18th, it will be at the archives. And everybody with whom we deal are so generous that they give us either big discounts. I mean, they see the importance. I'm going to have to ask you to make sure that you send us your email so we can send you invitation. The other event which will be happening, which we're going to be involved with, be September 18th. But mark November 18th on your calendar, please. September 18th, we're going to be supporting an effort that Walter Reed's going to be doing. Other medical schools, and Bob will attest to this, come to us because they see we're unique. and they see what we produce. We produce people of character, people who have integrity. We consider the family because the whole unit is involved in the education. We go basically 5 years, not 4 years that the regular medical school goes. And that's really all I have to say. There's more, but we don't have time.
Bob, thank you very much for that phenomenal brief. We're looking to learn more about it. And Tammy, thank you. We'll get the information out to people so we can be at your events this fall and help celebrate America 250 and military medicine. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Link.
I just had one comment and then a quick question. My comment is I spent 27 years serving with people who were graduates from USU's. And I agree with everything you said. They were top-notch team players, and I was privileged to know most or quite a few of those. One of our nursing advocates had mentioned she heard that the Tri-Service Nursing Research Program grant was considered or being affected. I was wondering maybe if you had any further information on that.
Joe, good question, and I'll try to answer it as succinctly as possible because I know you have business to complete this afternoon. Your source is good, your intelligence you received. What's going on at the university right now is that we're going through a budget decrement. That budget decrement is forcing us to look at reducing certain programs, reducing the size of our staff, with the hope that we'll have some restoration of funds in the execution year of 27 and the POM 28-32. In the short term, specifically, Joe, we're looking at not ending the funding for the Tri-Service Nursing Research Program, but reducing it from 6 million to 3 million. And with the hope, Joe, that because it's been a very successful program, with the hope that in 27, we'll be receiving execution year dollars that allow us to bump it back up to 6 million. Thank Link, Kevin, everybody here for this opportunity. It really is a special place. But don't take it from Tammy or me. As Tammy, I think, mentioned, if you're ever in the vicinity, stop by and talk to some of our students. I think you'll walk away very impressed. And then the leadership part of it, the director of the Defense Health Agency, USU grad. The Joint Staff Surgeon, USU grad. The Air Force Surgeon General, USU grad. Indeed, we just don't provide an education, but we develop, fine-tune leadership skills, and then our students, as they graduate from here, take it from there.
Bob Thompson, Chief of Staff for the Uniformed Services University, and Tammy Alvarez, the President of the Friends of the Uniformed Services University. We are honored to join you this afternoon on Thursday, 21 May 2026, and consider us a partner and a friend. This is not a one and done. We'll be seeing you in the future, not the least of which is at the National Archives in November. You bet, Tammy. We look forward to attending like no other event in our nation's capital. We want to thank you for being with us this afternoon.